Morning all. There are some absolutely brilliant games being played in the Norway Chess Tournament 2013. This is a new super tournament played at Stavanger, Norway, May 7th to 18th. So a lot of the strongest grandmasters in the world are playing in this super tournament. And Ludwig Hammer is one of the locals. He's 2630, and he could be called the bunny of the tournament at that rating, as everyone else, Carlsen, Aronian, Rajabov, Karajakin, Anand, Topalov, Nakamura, Svidler, Wang Hao, they're all over 2700. So it's Norway's first super tournament. Let's have a look at Hikaru Nakamura against Wang Hao in round 1. An interesting game here. E4 from Naka, E5. After knight f3, knight f6, and here is why I think this game's interesting, because as club players we want an exciting system against this dull Petroff line, this Petroff defence. Okay, so what does Naka play? He plays knight takes e5, after d6, knight f3, knight takes e4, and instead of d4 he plays this other move, knight c3. Okay, so white is accepting double pawns, changing the pawn structure in a very interesting manner. So after knight takes c3, d takes c3. Well, white has frontal pressure on d6. Black and white share the e file. Okay, and I think you'll find this game quite instructive for what happens on the e file later. So pay attention in particular, I think, to that aspect of this game. Bishop e7, bishop e3. White is preparing potentially to castle queenside. After castling by black on the king side, queen d2. So it's really being made clear that white is interested potentially in castling queenside. b6. Now you might not think this is too much of a concession. It seems logical to point the bishop at the centre like this. However, this b6 does weaken some of these light squares. So c6 in particular could be a problem. Also, if the bishop's heading here, it's leaving f5 behind. So these are things which maybe white can use here. White first castles queenside, and now bishop b7. So the bishop has now left f5 control, and we see Naka playing knight d4. So that knight is heading for that juicy f5 square. Okay. What can black do here? Doesn't really want to play g6 because that would run into very logical h4, h5. Black plays knight c6, inviting knight f5, and now there's this reflex action, bishop f6. So it looks as though this shouldn't be a problem with this bishop on f6, and black's got a seemingly dangerous looking knight e5 as well. A nice centrally placed knight, and maybe good prospects it seems. But h4. And here, Naka's plan is not necessarily to move the h-pawn forward. Black could just react, keeping the position closed on the king side if that happened. What we see after rook e8 is a very interesting move here by Naka. It's actually bishop g5, using the pawn as a basis for putting more pressure on f6. Okay, and it's difficult for black to kind of evict this bishop. Doesn't really want to take this and open up the h-file. And if he plays h6, then it's slaughter time. I think white can just play bishop takes, and here just rook h3, and the queen and rook and knight are just too much for the black king here. So this bishop is not easily kicked. Black uses that seemingly visually good knight e5, central knight, and bringing out that bishop to put pressure on g2 as well. Okay, we see f4, not minding about the e3 square here. Knight g4. So it looks as though that's a bit vulnerable and it's blocking in his own bishop. But now this is where the game gets, I think, super instructive for this e-file, because it looks as though white's usual plan in this kind of opening, we've seen past games on this channel, for example Natalia Polgonino using the h-pawn, getting a pawn to h6. Different plans, different styles of play. But this one is particularly interesting because this shared e-file, you'd think there's no way white can get control of this shared e-file, surely. Well, watch what happens now. Bishop b5. And it's asking the rook to move, but where can the rook comfortably move? If c6, white just plays knight takes d6, attacking the bishop, and this is really unpleasant. So that's unpalatable. So if that's out of the question, where does the rook move? It goes to e4, and now we see the rook being kicked again. Knight g3. The rook goes to e6 now, and now the rook is challenged with rook d e1. Okay, this looks quite annoying. Black now is faced with a prospect of the rook maybe being further kicked with f5. So black just takes on e1, and after rook takes e1, it looks as though white's threatening rook e8, winning the queen, and black kind of invites that with h6. Now, so a very tense position. Why can't, a lot of us would be tempted for rook e8, but I'm not sure it really achieves anything. Black has a pretty solid position if that is played here. Let's just quickly check that. Although rook e8 is given as a good move, you can see that the advantage is actually, from an engine point of view, it's less than pawn. It's here knight takes. Black's pretty solid as kind of potentially a fortress type position, and look, the advantage is even less than 0.70 here. So this kind of position might not be at all easy to win. It might be a fortress that black can set up and aim for a draw. What Naka does instead in this position is avoid that temptation to play rook e8. He actually just plays queen e2, so not minding hg for queen g4. Okay, black actually played queen c8 here. So let's have a quick look. If hg5, queen takes g4, this is actually very good for white. After g takes h4, knight h5, numerous threats. Now rook e8 is really threatened here because queen takes, there's knight takes f6, and then winning lots of material, winning the queen very nicely. This is a really dangerous position here, and black doesn't want this position. So in fact he played queen c8, just protecting the knight, and again asking this bishop to do something. But again, the bishop refuses to take. That would really solve a lot of black's problems. If bishop takes, then knight takes. Where are the problems for black? He's got this nice bishop on the diagonal, nice central control. Queen g4 may be coming next. Even so, okay. So actually, after queen c8, Naka leaves the bishop again with bishop d3. Now introducing an idea of bishop f5. Okay, and here black wanted to transition now to simplify the position, to get the queens off, even at the cost of potentially a pawn or some material. He really doesn't like this position after hg. If black plays hg here, bishop f5, queen d8, a very powerful move, instead of even just taking here, is to play hg, leaving both pieces attacked. And for example, bishop takes g5, queen takes g4, and this is very nice for white again, very dangerous after knight h5. Again, we've got threats like rook e8 on the cards. So black actually, after bishop d3, played actually queen e6, offering the exchange of queens. Nakamura actually took this after takes, now took on f6, knight takes. He's only temporarily winning a pawn. The main thing is getting the rook to the 7th rank actually, because g2 is on here. So rook takes e6, bishop takes g2, keeping material equality. And another danger you might think here is, these double pawns might not be very good in an endgame as well. Okay, we see rook e7, and black's got to be careful now about knight f5 on g7. The rook has to be evicted, it can't be tolerated there. But this next move does give white an opportunity for a nasty pin. Black actually plays knight d5, trying to kick the rook away. If the rook goes here, then I think there's actually, well, there's numerous moves. Maybe even bishop h3 is possible. Okay, so the rook can't really stay on that 7th rank. Nakamura plays bishop c4, pinning the knight, again threatening rook takes c7 with the pin. King f8 unpinning, but losing a bit of material. We have here a situation where white now is getting 2 minor pieces for his rook. He plays bishop takes d5. Black doesn't want to play bishop takes because then again rook takes c7. So the idea of king takes e7, bishop takes g2, 2 pieces for the rook. Rook f8, f5, king f6. So how does Naka win this now? Is it going to be easy? He brings the king into the centre, king d2, d5. Naka doesn't want to fall for a silly trap with rook d8 and then c6, losing whole piece. King e3, king e5, bishop h3. So the knight now is free to move, releasing the responsibility of the knight. Rook d8. The knight moves to e2 now, and it looks as though knight d4 is quite powerful with immediate threat, and that's extinguished with c5. King f3, rook d7. Now knight f4 introduces a few ideas, like knight g6 or knight e6 could be useful now. King f6, h5, locking down a bit more black's kingside pawns, and you might think this is a bit of a concession of the g5 square. I think king g5 may be answerable with bishop g4, and then knight e6. So black actually plays a6, b3, as though white wants to perch a knight nicely on d5 potentially one day, but also maybe discouraging a bit c4. Rook d8. Now knight e6 actually. Rook d7. So he's keeping these pawns just where they are at the moment and bringing in the king more powerfully now, controlling more central squares. a5. Bishop f1, so the bishop's interested in bishop e5 now. And black has quite a few difficulties here. If the rook moves away from c7, then knight c7 potentially is very useful. And with bishop b5 threatened, black actually plays c4 here. White now just plays a4. He doesn't mind undoubling his pawns here if black plays cb. Rook d6. Very difficult position now after bishop g2. The rook's really tied down to d5. The pawn can't move. The knight's holding d4. After rook d7, just bishop f3, and black's in such a difficult position. It's kind of zugzwangy now, and he decided to resign. Let's check briefly what black can do. Is he forcibly losing material? If let's say rook d6, then knight c7, and what does black do now? If d4 we have check. So how is d5 held there? So the rook moves off c7 and that loses d5. So let's say rook a7, then bishop takes d5. So where else can the rook move? Rook f7, bishop takes d5. So black is actually losing the d pawn here. If he moves his king, then we've got knight takes g7 or even king e5, just keeping the pressure, and here bishop takes d5. So this position is forcibly losing material for black, a zugzwang. So I thought this game was instructive from the e-file perspective, how white dominated that e-file after the opening phase. So a bit of a different plan to what we've seen in that opening, and a very exciting method maybe to use against the Petroff defense. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.